as we discuss the latest WINGER reports, which Portuguese international could we be set to sign? Today, my friends, I'm here to discuss today's latest reports as we welcome Renato Veiga to our football club. We discuss Kepa's future plus a ton more. So before I get into anything, I want to say thank you to everyone for showing love in yesterday's video. I was a bit surprised by the reaction, but I'm glad that you guys liked it, you resonated with it, and you enjoyed the conversation. So appreciate the love, my friends. Hope you guys enjoy it. And let's get straight into things. Let's start things off by discussing the latest reports surrounding Kepa Arrizabalaga. At the moment, Kepa's contract expires next year, so this summer is our final opportunity to raise some funds for the player's sale. Hopefully a permanent sale, getting this guy's enormous wages set at around £180,000 a week off our wage bill. Today we discuss reports coming out from The Athletic suggesting that Kepa is holding talks currently with Ittihad in Saudi Arabia. Now, they are a club that can fulfill his wage packet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Kepa's option is only to be in Saudi Arabia, because Real Madrid, they are still hovering behind the scenes. At the moment, they are unsure whether Lunin, the Ukrainian goalkeeper, is set to remain there, as the player is deciding his future at Real Madrid. Personally, I get it. He's been a number 2 for years, and after playing really well and helping Madrid get to the final, to not play in that final over Courtois, that's going to hurt, and that's going to make you question your life at that football club. So Kepa somehow could still remain at the best club in the world, even though he lost out on his first team place to Lunin. You know what, I think to myself sometimes, we all have dreams and kids of our players one day becoming pros, stars. They'll model their games on Ronaldo or Messi or Lampard or anyone. But actually I'm starting to realize that the key to success at this game, if you want to game the system, do Project Kepa, do Project Bettinelli. Yeah, being a second choice goalkeeper, that's going to give you some opportunities to get some decent minutes whilst earning a very nice wage. But if you're the third choice goalkeeper, we're essentially doing nothing throughout the season, bro. All you're basically doing is training for a living. This is where you can make your money, my guy. This is where it's at, yeah? So it's kind of funny, but it continues this thing of Kepa only failing upwards. One of the luckiest players this generation. He's on incredible wages. I think he's okay, but he lacks in certain areas, and I think the main thing with Kepa is always being that mental thing in his head that stops him from going to becoming one of the best keepers of his generation. So let's see what happens here, but it seems like finally Kepa should be sold soon this summer. And now we move on to discussing the first words said by our new summer recruit in Renato Veiga, as today he was officially presented by the football club. As we know, he signed a 7+1 year deal. At the moment, he is set to take part in first team training with the squad for this preseason, where Maresca will have the license and opportunity to assess Veiga fairly. If he passes the test, he'll remain here with the first team. If not, the club may decide to find a development path for him away from the club on loan. Hopefully that won't be the case. I'd like to see what he does, and he's a player I'll be paying a lot of attention towards this preseason. But my friends, let's learn the first words said by Renato Veiga. And I think what I liked about this interview today from the club is that Veiga is an unknown quantity. So it's nice to get an introduction behind who the player is, how he thinks, what he thinks of himself, his values. And I thought the interview today was pretty decent. As he says, I'm absolutely buzzing to be here. This is one of the biggest clubs in England, the biggest for me, and I'm just really excited to get started. To move on though, we learned some more insight behind his character. As he said, you get put into situations at a very young age and you have to adapt to them. It is like being in survival mode, and it's a way of living. You just have to live to get on with it. And essentially he's referring to his times growing up as a kid, where he spent a lot of times in different countries like Cyprus, Morocco, and the player announced that he himself speaks 5 different languages: English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and Arabic. And it makes a lot of sense because his father was a professional football player who played as a defender. You'd imagine that it would be pretty tough for Renato as a kid, constantly having to relocate from different country to different country, different culture to different culture. I think as you get older, it makes you a very well-adjusted, rounded type of person. But as you're a kid, when you don't have those foundations set everywhere, it can be a bit difficult. So that's part of the football life that we don't normally consider in terms of how it can affect family life. But regardless, it's made Renato Veiga who he is right now, and it's why he's been signed by us at 20 years old. As Renato goes on to say, "I'm a smart, aggressive player. I'm comfortable on the ball, and I would describe myself as a complete player due to my versatility. I'm comfortable in many positions on the pitch. I wouldn't say I have a favorite position because it depends on the opponent or tactical elements, but I have played at left back, centre back, and as a defensive midfield player. I like to defend a lot with my height and physical strength. I enjoy it. I like to control games with or without the ball." And I think with how he's describing himself, this is exactly how our sporting directors have seen the player. As I've kept stressing, I'm not going to put these unrealistic expectations on Veiga. I don't think this is a Cole Palmer situation where we've unearthed the next star to blow. If anything, as I keep stressing, this is a project player. This is a player we can wrap our arms around, develop, cater towards, and this is why I'm hoping that regardless of how preseason goes, he should at least remain here with the first team, because what is the point of developing elsewhere when maybe working under Maresca, getting used to his ideas, his tactical elements, etc, etc, that can put him in a better place as the season is going on. I know it's going to be easy for a lot of us to think Nini, but basically sign a cheaper Calafiori who's stronger and more physical and is probably better already. I'm not going to take things too far. I'm not going to do that to the guy. And I think the main difference is between Veiga and Calafiori is that before Calafiori had to go to Basel for footballing reasons, he was seen as one of the premium talents in Italy. That is the truth of reality, and essentially this is a star wonder kid that is now fulfilling his potential and showcasing what he's really about. Last season was promising for Veiga. He came back strong after a pretty indifferent spell at Augsburg, but second half of last season, he didn't get all the minutes due to injuries and even suspensions, so he hasn't played football in a minute, and this is why I think we must be a bit patient and keep things a bit open-minded in terms of his development this season. So regardless of all of that though, we say welcome to Chelsea Football Club, Renato Veiga, and hopefully this guy can live up to our ideas that we have for him, because this guy's a unit who's got a fantastic range of passing, and fingers crossed we can be the football club that can hone, fine-tune, and craft his talents. Are you guys excited for Renato Veiga? Let us know below. Now we discuss the final stories today, and we talk the latest reports on wingers. Now today, there were some interesting reports coming out from England surrounding Wolverhampton Wanderers winger in Pedro Neto. Now Neto is a player that has constantly been a thorn in our sides over multiple seasons. But right now, let's discuss the reports coming out surrounding the player, and we are learning that Neto's representatives have been holding multiple talks with interested parties. In terms of these interested clubs, Tottenham are a strong favourite. Newcastle, they're looking for their winger. They tried to get Odyssey. They have money to spend. And we have been another club linked with Pedro Neto. Now, it won't surprise you when I reveal this, but Jorge Mendes is the player's agent. We know that Mendes has a great relationship with our club at this moment, and reports have simply said we have asked to stay informed on Neto's situation. This can mean multiple things. Let's say Spurs, Newcastle find an agreement for the player. You'd imagine with our links with Jorge Mendes, he'll announce exactly the price, fee, and wage demands to potentially make a move smooth sailing for us. It makes sense for us, and this is how I see it, to remain in the shadows for now, because if we announce our interests that boldly, that could increase the price. Wolves can want more money. So it makes sense that we'd prefer to stay informed on this situation so we can assess what happens in the future. Now you'd imagine that Wolves be pretty reluctant to sell. They've sold Kilman to West Ham, and he was one of their star players, and Neto was one of their star players of last season. Now thank God he was able to finally show some consistency in terms of fitness, where you know, for the first time in like 2.5 years, I think he played like over 25 games for Wolves. And I have to say, in the Premier League, he was low-key one of the most dangerous wingers in the league. I mean, in like 18 appearances and 2 sub-appearances, he got 2 goals and he got 9 assists. I think last season was by far his best season at a professional level. And for Pedro Neto, he's been one of these dangerous players that always makes things happen. That game changer in that sense, that causes a lot of threat to opposition teams. And it felt like he was ready for a season like last season to finally fall his way, because he has that type of potential to his game. Now, the report mentions that Enzo Maresca is actually a pretty big fan of Neto. Can I believe that? I really don't know, but to maybe be open-minded with this report, I could see why Maresca would be a fan of Neto. I think one thing that works in Neto's favour is that he is equally dangerous on either flank, on the right flank or the left flank. From the right, he can cut inside on his left foot and take shots. From the left flank, this guy is an assist merchant, dangerous balls across the box, and he is equally strong at taking on his man down either flank. That is a nice player to have in your squad. This is a guy that can bring that danger from any position, and I think it's safe to say that he's one of the best dribblers in the Premier League right now. I like that he plays with purpose. He's not one of those wingers that has his head down. He doesn't know what his next move is, and he's like constantly making it up on the spot. At the same time, I know that injury history hasn't been good to him. Now, since suffering that nasty knee injury, I feel like when you have serious injuries like this, and you guys have seen on screen, he was kept up for nearly an entire year. That's going to take you even more time for your body to acclimatize to like professional football demands again. And I think it's no surprise that when players have like really long-term injuries, they can be susceptible to hamstring injuries a little bit. But at least he was able to get over some of these injuries, even though he still missed significant minutes. But I guess the question is, do you feel like Neto is past this injury history? Because if he is, you could potentially be signing one of the emerging talents in this league, potentially one of the top 5 wingers in the country. There's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of maybes, but I think realistically, if his fee is affordable, if Wolves aren't asking for stupid money, if his wages, which you'd imagine will be under 200,000 easily, satisfy the club, could we explore the possibility and option to make a move for him? Let's watch this space, but as you know, I can imagine that we'll be surprised eventually by this winger that we look to sign for the team. So share your thoughts on Neto. Does this make sense or not? Let us know. And for the final report, my friends, we discussed the latest updates surrounding FC Porto winger in Francisco Conceição, because we have some updates coming out from records. And essentially, as we know, don't forget this, from Tuesday, his release clause, which is currently 30 million euros, will expire and then rise to 45 million euros. Now, this still easily falls within the range that we could potentially look towards when it comes to making a move. But ideally, you think to yourself, if you're serious for the player, this is the best time to sign him at a bargain fee and bargain price. At the moment, a ton of clubs are showing interest in the player because this is a pretty interesting offer. And his agent is Jorge Mendes. You know, we have so many links and ties to Jorge Mendes players. Personally, with all these reports coming around, I don't think it's a coincidence that all these Mendes clients now are getting linked with us. Mendes is a businessman who uses influence in the media, journalists, with clubs to try to find the best possible destinations for his players, because not only is he aiding their careers, but he's making some pretty decent money from that. But what I'm saying is, I think this explains a lot of the reports that we are seeing at this point in time. But one thing that is a fact, RB Leipzig are massive fans and they are showing the most concrete interest in making a move happen. Outside of that, Dortmund, Bayern Munich had light interest, but they are now turning their attention to Desiree Doué, and obviously clubs like Atletico Madrid and us. So let's see what happens before this Monday deadline. Conceição is more of a strict right winger who cuts inside, compared to being someone that plays on the left. And I don't know, I feel like now that we've moved away from Michael Olise, does it make sense to target another right winger? I don't know, to be fair with you. Not with Esteval coming next season. As I've said, I'd like to think that the reason why we fell off the move to sign Olise, I know people say finances. It wasn't completely just down to finances. I'm only hoping and thinking that we ended that move because we were like, Esteval, you're our guy for the future. That's the only way this makes sense for me, because if you're gonna say no to Odyssey, but then maybe target another right winger, then that does communicate some miscommunication. It's not really telling us fans exactly what this plan is for the window, and a lot of times it does feel like our business can be a bit improvised, because we aren't necessarily now going for those top 1, top 2 or top 3 choices. And I think sometimes when clubs are forced to now make moves to 4th, 5th, 6th place options, this is where you can really face that risk. I'd be surprised if he made any concrete efforts for Conceição. I think he's a talented winger, but I think for particular players like this, when I look at them, I think to myself, okay, announce yourself for the next 1 to 2 years. When you're 23 years old, then let's see if you're ready now to come to a big club, be that star man, and take a big club forward. I do think sometimes when it comes to signing players, I know that everything's so transfer focused and transfer heavy these days, but a lot of times you still need the right profiles, the top players that can come to your club and make things happen. Because when you're at this level, you know, the margins are so fine, they're so small. A club like us must win 65 to 75% of games to have a successful season, compared to other clubs where if you get at least 50 to 40% win rate, that is good enough. So the margins are that important, and those margins get filled by big clubs having the fortunate license to have some top players that other clubs can never get their hands on, and they make the difference in the end. So for myself, I don't think Conceição's at that level yet, but I do think this guy is a very exciting talent, and he is one to watch for the future for sure. So my friends, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions, and on that note, I am the EFC, this is BlueLionsTV. See you all soon.